Hi, welcome to Avantico's final Dynamics 365 support webinar of 2024. My name is Aaron Klein. I'm the marketing manager here at Avantico. And with me today is our featured speaker for this session, Chris Barbera, Avantico's Managed Services and Strategic Initiatives Director. So today's session focuses on Microsoft D365 One version updates, including the updates Microsoft has made to the Cadence, the life cycle of an update in 2025, best practices, and Avantico's managed services offerings. Now, Chris will dive deeper into the full session breakdown momentarily, but before he does, I just wanted to share with you a few of the other upcoming events that we have for 2025. So next month is 2025 coming up quick, and we have one in-person event and two live webinars that month. So the in-person event is the Summit Roadshow on January 14th in Playa Vista at the Microsoft office there, Los Angeles, California. Now we're hosting this alongside Summit North America, where we and a variety of Microsoft partners will present a full day of innovation, education, and training focused on Microsoft business applications. Now, a note about that event is free, but space is limited. So I recommend signing up ASAP if you'd like to attend. I'll put the link to all these events and webinars in the chat for you here momentarily. And then on the 21st of January, we'll be hosting a D365 support webinar titled Streamlining the Year-End Close Process. This webinar will cover best practices, common challenges, and advanced features, including automation and integration with other enterprise systems. Then the following week, on January 28th, we'll be hosting a live webinar on AMCS, Avantico's Advanced Multi-Entity Automation Solution for D365 Finance and Supply Chain. In this webinar, we'll explore how AMCS can help you streamline data imports and automate journal posting across a multi-company organization while ensuring compliance at scale. And again, I'll put the registration links for all these events in the chat for those who are interested, but you can also find them on our website under the Abouts tab, as well as linked in the slide deck that we'll be sending you post this presentation. And then, yeah, Chris, if you want to hop in and take it away, it's all you.
Certainly. Well, good morning or good afternoon, folks, wherever you are in the world here. Hope you guys are having a good holiday. My name is Chris Barbera. As Aaron mentioned, I manage our managed services department and a few other initiatives here at Avantiico. A bit about myself: I've been working in the ERP consulting area for over 25 years, which I realize now just makes me sound old. After about 15 years, after that, you have enough expertise. Now it's just 10 years of getting a bit older. But during that time, I've worked as a developer, project manager, engagement manager, and then for about the past 10 years in managed services here at Avantiico. About 15 years experience with Dynamics 365 and its legacy versions, AX 2012 and 2009. I've worked on big organizations, implementations of small ones, anything from Boeing, Hewlett Packard, Philips Semiconductor. And now we support thousands of Dynamics customers daily, anything from publicly traded companies down to smaller privately held companies, and across the range of industries as well, anything from artificial plant manufacturing to the largest KFC franchise in the country. And we even do some foreign government work as well. Celebrated my 10 years at Avantiico last year, and we've completed over 30 managed service updates for Dynamics 365 this year. So we do this a lot, and hopefully we can impart some of that knowledge here as you look into 2025. I also want to mention, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Aaron's going to kind of curate those. As we get to the end, we'll start going through, though. There'll be some time for questions at the end, okay? But please put them in as you think about them, so make sure we can capture those and get your thoughts and such, okay? All right, so we're going to go over what are one version updates. We'll talk about the update cadence for 2025. Then we'll look a bit more carefully at the timeline specifically for 10.042, which is being released, at least in theory, it should be released on December 27th. And we'll talk about maybe some challenges on that date as well. We'll go through some of the key lifecycle services settings and some changes for LCS coming in 2025. We'll also talk a bit about the Avantiico managed services offerings. And then also at the end, we'll talk about how you can get a free service update roadmap. I'll talk a bit more about that, but essentially we'll do an hour call with you to put together your roadmap for 2025, even if you're not currently an Avantiico customer. Okay. And hopefully if you're an Avantiico customer, you should already have one of these from us. If you don't, just let us know in the chat. But I think everybody does. All right, so what is a one version update? So one version is Microsoft's essentially branded name for a continuous update model for Dynamics 365 finance and supply chain. You may also hear me say finance and operations. That's kind of a little bit the older name for it, but most and a lot of people you even see in some literature is still F&O. So today we're not talking about Dynamics 365 sales, customer service, or supply chain, or field service. Those three are on a different cadence, and it's a little simpler update, but we may do those in future sessions if that's an interest. So one version refers to keeping everybody, all Microsoft customers, on either the current version or one version behind. And as you can kind of see for the bottom here, if you imagine Microsoft, now everything's cloud hosted, if they were trying to support 5 or 6 or 8 different versions and then also put out updates, that would be a big challenge. So that's why they've implemented this policy of keeping everybody on the same version, or at the worst, one version behind. So it's more manageable for them. And what happens if you don't update? Well, Microsoft will update for you. And I like to say, auto updates are great for your iPhone, not so great for your enterprise applications. So it is important to make sure you plan these things out, and we recommend you never let an auto update go in, because you don't know what's going to happen to your production environment without testing. Also get this question a lot: are the updates cumulative? And they are. So since you can skip one, for example, if you are on 10.0.40 right now and you chose to skip 41, when you take 42, probably in January, you'll get the updates from everything that you haven't taken so far. Okay. All right, so what's in a service update? There's really 5 areas. First, you get quality and security updates. So think quality updates is really Microsoft's way of saying bug fixes, but you also get security fixes as well. Now, Microsoft does have something called proactive quality updates that go in between these major updates. So if they have an issue where they have a high priority security fix, they still have a way to get it in between these major updates. Okay. Also, new and enhanced features. Oftentimes there's dozens, many dozens sometimes, of changes in each one of these updates around adding new features, especially as we see Copilot coming out and being expanded in 2025. And then they change some of the features as well. A couple examples, like in 2021, they came out subscription billing. There's been more recent ones around financial tags. The benefit to you, though, is you're already paying for your subscription. These are coming out as new features, so you might as well get to take advantage of them. You're already paying for them. So it's really important to keep up with those. These features will come out typically as one of 3 types: an optional update, which you can turn it on through feature management, on by default, where when you install the update, it's in feature management, but it's going to be turned on for you unless you actively turn it off. And then the last one is where they're mandatory. Essentially, the update comes in and it's now that feature is enabled and you can't turn it off. Not that many come in immediately as mandatory. They often kind of go through the cycle of, hey, it's there if you want to turn it on. The next update, it's on by default, but you could turn it off. And then the next update, it's going to be on whether you want it or not. Okay. Then the next is platform updates. These are benefits to the user experience, not necessarily features. Be things like enhanced filtering, improvements to the UI, perhaps performance improvements, things like that. Okay. And then the fourth one is regulatory updates. This hits a lot of non-US localizations, but there can be changes in regulations for the US as well. We had a couple years back where there was a change to the 1099 format and rules. And then, of course, there was a service update that came out to affect that in advance. And then there'll be removed or depreciated features. These are depreciated. Essentially, Microsoft didn't get rid of it yet, but they're not going to update it. And then removed, essentially, that feature is completely removed from the application. And it is typically replaced with something new. They don't just usually take out features. One of these examples is their support for the Microsoft Exchange email provider. They're migrating to MS Graph. I'm going to talk about this one specifically in a bit, because I think this is important for people to consider as they move into 2025. And there's also some considerations if you're running DocCentric. Okay. I'm not sure why they called it MS Graph. I know it sounds a little misleading for an email provider, but that's the term they decided to use there. So what are the benefits of having these service updates happen multiple times a year versus just doing them when you want? You get enhanced security and regular quality updates or bug fixes, so your system stays secure. You'd also get improved ISV or add-on capability, because if somebody is a partner with Microsoft on developing third-party solutions, they also have to agree with Microsoft that they will put out applications that are compatible with the latest version and be backward compatible with the previous version. So it really helps with compatibility there as well. You also get enhanced regulatory compliance because, of course, those features are coming out and regularly be putting into your system. You are also taking advantage of new features that are coming out of subscription for the price you're already paying. Because those new features are coming out, you can also reduce the number of customizations typically because Microsoft's looking out into the industry and seeing what are important features people are looking for, and then bringing those into the standard product so people are less likely to customize. And probably the last one is my favorite, is the no more $2 million upgrades. You don't know how many customers I've seen that sit on, on-prem software. They start customizing it. They don't take the updates. And now they're like 8 years into an application they now can't use. They can't update it. And now they need to migrate into some new ERP, and it's going to cost them millions of dollars. This really avoids that by having these small incremental updates. So where can you look for information on version 10.042? Well, as you can see here, it's not really that well consolidated. There's a couple pages for supply chain changes, a few for finance. There's another one for platform updates, another one for regulatory, and then there's another one here for removed or depreciated features. In fact, there's another one even for bug fixes as well. And we're going to send the deck out so you don't have to scramble to try to get all these links. We'll make sure you get it. As Avantiico, we do look at all of these, and we'll prepare a curated list of these hundreds of updates and changes, which we send out to our managed service customers so you can kind of see what are the highlights of this deck and this coming out in this feature. So as an example of some of the slides from the presentation here from 10.040, there was a credit collections change. There was also some master planning changes. Now, if you're currently an Avantiico managed service customer, I think I see a few on the call, you'll be receiving the update for 10.042. I think, Aaron, we're sending that out Friday or Monday, I think, to you guys. So you'll have that out, and that'll be out about 2 weeks before the general available date for 10.042. And that's really our goal, is to have this out to you at least 2 weeks before the update is going to be available. That way you can ask questions, look at what might be interesting to you, what might be mandatory, and what features you may want to take advantage of in the future. If you're not an Avantiico Services customer, now hopefully your current partner is providing some of this advanced notice and proactive information to you so you can take advantage of features and kind of focus in on your testing. I do want to highlight one that is actually going to be in our deck for 10.042, and this is the depreciation of the Microsoft Exchange email provider. So Microsoft is determining that the Exchange email provider being used with Dynamics 365 is not as secure as it could be, and they want to migrate to Microsoft Graph as the email provider. So there'll be more information in the deck, but there are some ways to change this. Microsoft has already depreciated it, and we don't really know the day it's going to be removed. So we're really encouraging customers early in 2025 to look at how you have your email set up for D365, finance and supply chain, and making some changes. There are a few things you need to do in Azure too, so the link is in here as well to kind of step through those. One thing that's important to note, because we have a lot of our customers use DocCentric, which is a great tool for sending information and documents out of D365. You do need to make sure that you're at least on 3.4.7.2 or later to have that application be compatible with DocCentric and the new MS Graph. Okay. So there we go. So the service updates cadence, I'm sorry, this should say 2025. We did this mid-year as well, but let's go through this here for 2025. There will be, as we're in 2024, there will be 4 updates in 2025. As far as we know, Microsoft has only published the schedule out until October of 2025. So we're anticipating that they should, typically by January, they should have it out for most of 2026, but we'll see what's going to come out from them. They do tend to change the cadence every once in a while. In 2023, there was 7 updates. 2022, I think it was 10 updates, and they kept reducing it down. So we'll see what they get to, perhaps when they publish out what's for 2026. As I mentioned, I think before, perhaps I didn't, only 1 update can be skipped at a time. So you still are required to take 2 updates a year. And again, if you don't plan those out, Microsoft will unfortunately put them in for you. So it is important to make sure you have a good plan, and I'll show you some examples of that for each of at least the 2 service updates that you're going to take. We do have some customers that opt to take all 4 updates, and the reason is if you take all 4, of course, you're getting the features more frequently, but also it gives you more flexibility of when you start and end the updates, because you have a lot longer window before there's going to be a mandatory update for you. So some of our customers that have particular busy seasons during the year may choose to take all 4 so they can kind of move them around a bit more. Okay. So I'm curious, everyone on the call should be on 10.040 or 10.041. If anybody wants, feel free to share in the chat. It'd be great to kind of see what version you guys are on now. If anybody wants to share that. If not, I can kind of continue on here. But I could kind of tell you this: if you're on 40 and you skip 41, then 42 will be mandatory for you, which comes out December 27th. We're suggesting most of our customers start looking at that early January. If you are on 41, then you can skip 42, and then 43 will be out March 15th, 14th or 15th. So you'd want to start getting some planning probably early March for those, unless you're taking every update. Great. So let's look at the anatomy here and the life cycle of a specific update. So I'm going to use this as an example of 10.040, but then I'll give you the specific change, like what this would really look like for 42. So let's look at an example. What Microsoft will do is there is a preview version that will come out. It's usually about a 6 to 7 week period between the preview version and what we call the generally available version. That is the version you can actually install to production, and the earliest date Microsoft would allow you to get that for a production update. Now, during that preview time, you can download a copy of it and put it in a non-production environment to kind of look at the new features and such. We don't have that many customers do that, but there are a few. It is very important, though, that whatever you look at during that preview period, understand it's going to keep changing. So we don't recommend any of the testing you've done in that preview period. You assume, okay, well, I tested that feature then, so I don't need to test it after I have the generally available version. Microsoft may say there's like a point during that preview where it's fairly stable, but we've seen in practical application that they're still making changes after that point. So now we get to the generally available date. That for 10.042 is going to be 12/27, at least currently. And then there's typically a 4 to 5 week period before you will hit window 1, which is the first opportunity that Microsoft will take to auto update your environment. We always recommend pausing that update. A week after, it will auto update your UAT environments. It will update your production environment and the rest of your UAT environment. Some customers have multiple. And then there'll be about a 3 week period before you hit window 2 for the auto updates. If this update is required for you, you cannot pause window 2. Okay, so you're going to be forced to take it by that. Okay. Now, also the numbers I'm telling you here and the dates, this is assuming you have the most optimal settings of what's called Microsoft Lifecycle Services, which I'll show you here in a minute. If you don't have the optimal settings, these windows are going to even be shorter for you. Okay, so let's look at 42. So anybody that's on the call that's on 40, you're going to have to take this 42 update. If you're on 41, this update's optional for you, and you would have a greater window to take this update if you choose to take it. I also want to mention this just came out yesterday from some of the blogs, is certain customers can be signed up for what's called a first release customer, which means you're kind of helping Microsoft test some of this. They've determined there was an error they haven't been able to resolve yet in 10.042. It doesn't mean, when that happens, it doesn't mean that 42 will always be delayed for generally available dates for everybody else. But when it's this close to, we're at 12/12 now, and it's supposed to come out 12/27, I've seen in the past it could actually delay the generally available date. So we'll keep monitoring that. But as of right now, they're still announcing that 12/27 will be the generally available date. Okay. Just some current events there for you guys on what's happening. Okay, so let's look at what we would suggest here for 10.042. You can see on the left here, very early January or perhaps even in late December, I would be contacting your ISV partners and letting them know you're going to go to 10.042, and if they're going to have an update published that is going to be required to be compatible with 42. We'd also go with some planning sessions to make sure you have all of this, your update cadence, what environment you're going to be using, and things set up. Okay, so let's look at this. The update will be put out on 12/27 by Microsoft. We'd recommend starting the earliest about January 3rd to start doing your code merges between your ISV updates, your customizations, and the changes from Microsoft. And then assuming you pause window 1, which we'd recommend, you'd have a maximum of about 7 weeks before we'd suggest you are in production no later than 2/21. Okay. This update, the first one for the year, actually has a little bit longer window. So typically you only have about 6 weeks for this, but the update cadence actually gives you 7 weeks this time. As you can see over here on 3.7, assuming you have the most optimal settings, your UAT environment would auto update, and on 3.14, your production would update. Now, you might be saying, okay, well, if it's going to auto update on 3.14, why are you recommending 2/21? Well, Avantiico recommends you have a 2-week time period between the first auto update that you can't pause and when you're in production. And why is this? Let's just look back in June of this year when the CrowdStrike issue happened. I'm sure everybody remembers that, where there was these huge problems and a lot of systems went down. We had a number of customers on that weekend ready to go to production for their update. And although D365 didn't go down, a bunch of their other systems did, and their IT department was slammed. Their testers were busy testing other critical issues. But because we had that 2-week contingency time, we were able to wait a week, or in some cases even 2, to do that production update before we were going to run into the problem with Microsoft auto updating. So we do always recommend that you keep this 2-week buffer in there as well. And when we set this up for you as a managed service customer, we make sure we do have that time in there. So we do suggest putting together a detailed calendar. This is an example of one we put together with our customers for each of the service updates. We tailor these to each one of our customers. We'll look through. You should have consideration of which environment you're going to use, when you're going to pause other activities you're doing in the environments, when you're going to refresh your data, when you're going to start testing, when you're going to do a second test, what we suggest in one of your Microsoft managed environments, when you're going to do that production move, and then make sure you take some actions after the production update to pause your future updates. And then we'll also go back in and pause some of your Azure environments to reduce some of your Azure costs after the update is completed. So hopefully, if you're not working with Avantiico now, your current partner is giving you some advance notice and kind of working with you to put this together. We do find this is very helpful. A lot of our customers will kind of publish this kind of visual calendar to help kind of get their team knowledgeable about when we're going to be doing the updates and when the system may be unavailable. All right, I'm going to talk briefly about lifecycle services. Again, you're going to get this deck, so I'm not going to go through an actual demo of it. But first, just for anybody who doesn't know, hopefully you guys are using it, but Microsoft Lifecycle Services, or LCS, is a tool to implement, monitor, and maintain your D365 environments. This is not just for your partner, so it is important that at least somebody within your organization is a project owner within LCS. There can be multiple owners, so it's fine if your partner is an owner too, but it is important that you have access to this because this is your tool as well. LCS is likely actually be retired in 2025. We don't have a lot of information on this yet, but we know that eventually the features that you see at LCS are going to be migrated to the Power Platform Admin Center. We don't know exactly when. Microsoft hasn't published it, but you can see them starting to move a few diagnostic features from LCS to the Admin Center. And this is really to give a unified platform, whether you're using Power Platform or D365 and such. You're using any of those different tools. They want to kind of give you a consolidated, comprehensive platform for that. Okay, so there's really 2 key ones to look at. You want to go to Lifecycle Services, do here in the 3 vertical bars, go down to Project Settings, go to Update Settings, and make sure your cadence is set as you see here. Even if you're in a different time zone, just picking these options gives you the longest period possible to be able to take the update. Okay. You could set it earlier, but because we're going to be doing manual updates based on your schedule versus an auto update, you just want to set this auto update out as far as possible. Okay. And again, we'll send the deck out here. The second one is you want to be able to make sure that you're pausing updates out as far as possible. This is you just go to Project Settings, Update Settings, and then you'll go to the pause upcoming updates all the way at the bottom of the screen. From there, you can see this example. You actually see 4 listings here for a version update. This is because this is window 1. This is the date that your UAT environment update. The second one is when your production update would occur. As I mentioned, there's 2 windows here. So you want to make sure you pause both of those if you're not intending to take the update. If you have to take the update, you'll be able to pause just the first window. Now, again, if you're a Microsoft Avantiico customer and we're doing your managed service updates, we're taking care of this for you, so don't worry. But if you're just kind of getting some knowledge from this, just make sure that you do the correct pausing so you avoid those auto updates. Okay, so what we want to offer you guys here on the call, this is a free opportunity for us to create a roadmap for you of what your updates are going to look like in 2025. Example here is on the bottom of the screen. This is actually going back, one of them we did for a customer all the way back from May of 2024 through October of 2025. What we'll do is talk to you about when your busy seasons are going to be, what features are important to you, and then put together a schedule that will help you know when you're going to need to take the updates during 2025. Again, we can only do it out till October because that's all they've published so far, but we're happy to do that. We'll have a short call with you, kind of understand what your important timeframes are, and then we'll put together the roadmap for you, and then we'll just have a brief call back, maybe 15 minutes to go over it with you and answer any questions. Again, you don't have to be an Avantiico customer to do this, and if you're interested, just type in roadmap in the Teams chat, and then we'll reach out to you. There's no obligation for that or anything. Okay. All right, how are we doing on time here? I got enough time to say all the great things about Avantiico managed services, or we need to switch over to questions here? We're doing good on time there, Eric?
Yeah, I think you're doing pretty good, Chris. Yeah, you can hop in.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. So I'll just do a brief plug here for our managed services, and then we'll open up to questions here. So when we're doing your service updates, what will we do? Again, I mentioned we'll create an annual roadmap for you, like you saw on the previous slide. For each of your service updates, we will create a detailed timeline for you. You saw some of the visuals of the calendar. Work with you on that and have regular checkpoints during that to make sure that's moving forward, and coordinate with either our team or yours to make sure things are paused, so you're not trying to test against a moving target during that time. We'll also keep you updated with new features. I mentioned that every quarter, a few weeks before the update comes out, we'll give you, that curated list of features, and then be able to go over that with you if you have any questions. We'll also configure and maintain your lifecycle services settings, which I mentioned earlier. And then our service updates are at a fixed price. So you have a very good way of being able to budget all the way out for 2025 on how much is it going to cost and what efforts are going to be required to do these service updates. So there's no surprises when you're trying to do IT budgeting. Lastly, a few things about our reactive support managed services. This is more of traditional support where something comes up and you need some help, versus more the kind of planned out part of the service updates. So we are a single source solution for D365 finance and supply chain, sales, customer service, field service, as well as the Power Platform. We also cover almost all the ISVs that people typically have installed because we work with so many of the different ones. We also provide flexibility. It's not just for break fix. If you have questions on training, new features, looking out in the future, and questions for what's coming out, all that can be covered under the managed services program. We also are 100% US and Canadian based support. So that means we're working when you are. There's no overseas component to Avantiico at all. Avantiico is North American based, although we have a few customers overseas where we may be providing some additional services there. For support, it's all US and Canada. That means, again, as I mentioned, we're working with you are. It also means if you are on a US based tenant, your data never leaves North America. It's never accessed outside of a high data protection country. We have some DoD customers where they're accessing that type of data. That's a requirement. Others, it's just a preference. Just depends on what's important for you guys in that. You also get a dedicated contact. There's no call centers. You'll be working with the same team. And that team is here, if you look at the next one, is an experienced team, about 10 years experience on average for our support team, which means typically the first person you talk to on our team is the person who can actually solve the issue for you. We also provide holistic advice. We're always looking at what's coming out from Microsoft. So if you ask for customization, we may say, yeah, we could do that for you. That's going to take 2 hours of customization, but would you rather wait 2 months because Microsoft is coming out with that feature for the next release? That can save you some time and lower support costs over the long term. And then we also provide a portal for you to enter your cases and see, what's the status of those guys. Okay. All right. So that's enough about managed services. Appreciate you guys listening in on that part. The other thing would be great to hear from you guys as we open this up to questions is if you have any suggestions on what you'd like to see for topics for 2025. We're kind of putting together our webinar schedule, and we'd be great if we could cover something and be interested for anybody on the call. So appreciate it. All right, Aaron, what are we looking at here for? Do we have any questions, or we can open it up to the floor here?
Yeah, nothing in the chat currently, Chris, but if you guys do have any questions, feel free at this moment to pop yourselves off mute, address those questions directly to Chris. Yeah, thank you so much.
No, that was great, Chris. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, great. Well, I appreciate everybody attending. I'll just go back up here just to remind you guys about what's coming up too, if any of these are of interest. Just remember, we have a couple additional live webinars coming up and then some in-person events. It'd be great to meet anybody at the in-person one. I'll be there. And then you can pepper me with questions there if you have some that you don't want to ask today. So appreciate it.
Looks like one just popped up in the chat just now, Chris. Asking if we're aware of any timelines for CSU updates.
Not right now. No. Can you just, what's CSU? I probably just drawn a blank on it.
Store and e-commerce.
For e-commerce. I don't know the time frame for that. For the e-com updates. Oh, the commerce scale unit. Okay, so that's what you're talking about. Yes, I don't know the timeline of that. Although what I understand is they should typically be coming out at the same time that the service updates are. In other words, the same timeline that the 4 updates are for D365 overall. At least if you're using it with D365. So hopefully that helps out. Yeah, of course. They don't, unfortunately, they don't publish. They're not. I would say that with finance and supply chain, they're very good at providing information about when the service updates are coming out in a lot of detail. For CE, which is sales, customer service, field service, power platform, and commerce scale unit, not as well. I think I don't find that the Microsoft Learn has as much comprehensive documentation. But from Microsoft, I believe they are publishing that about the same time that the other service updates are, because they have to be compatible if you're using it with F&O. So yeah, great, good deal. Any other questions? All right, Aaron, do you want to?
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chris. And again, I'll be sending out a recap, sending out the recording and the deck that Chris presented off of. And then don't hesitate. I know some of you may have already signed up for the January webinar on the year-end close process, but do feel free to share these links across your organization. And if you are in California or close by, we'd love to see you guys at the Summit North America Roadshow coming up in January 14th. And I hope you get through the end of the year and have some wonderful holidays. Thank you so much for attending.